In the bustling heart of Lagos, Nigeria, lived a man who had everything, yet trusted nothing. Chuka Obiora, 38 years old, was a billionaire many only saw in magazines or on the news. He was a self-made man, the owner of Obiora Group, real estate. Tech, oil, you name it, his hands were in it. But even with all his wealth, cars and respect, Chuka lived with one fear no amount of money could erase. Was he truly loved? Or just his bank account? His wife Amaka was beautiful, flawless skin the color of roasted coffee, with eyes that could calm storms and a smile that melted even the toughest of men. They'd met 4 years ago in a cafe where she was working as a waitress. He never told her who he truly was then. She fell for his charm, his mind, his humility, or so he thought. After 2 years of dating, he married her. Lavish wedding, celebrities, 5-star honeymoon in Seychelles. She never asked much about his business, and he liked that. But over time, he noticed small things. How she spoke more of gifts than gratitude, how she rolled her eyes when he said he wanted a simple life someday. Something didn't sit right, and so Chuka did something drastic, something even his closest friend Jeed told him was insane. He created a lie, a test. One morning over breakfast, he told Amaka he had been bankrupt. Amaka, I lost everything. There's a scandal. Contracts pulled, investors gone. I'm finished, he said with trembling hands, playing his role so well even he almost believed it. She dropped her spoon, mouth slightly open. Then came silence. Long, cold, heavy. Finished? As in, broke, she asked, eyes narrowing. Yes, I just have one house left. My father's old place in Enugu. No staff, no drivers, no money in the bank. I need to disappear for a while until things settle. Maybe 6 months. I want us to go there together. He watched her closely, her reaction, her breath, her heartbeat. She stood up slowly, walked to the sink, and said nothing, her back to him. And then, softly, like a knife dressed in silk, she whispered, I can't do this, Chuka. I didn't sign up for poverty. Chuka's heart cracked just a little, but he stayed calm. You mean, you're leaving me? She turned around, arms folded. You lied to me. You hid your company problems, your downfall, all of it. I feel betrayed. And honestly, I'm not about to go live like some village wife, fetching water with calabash and sweating like a goat. He blinked, speechless. You expect me to follow you to Enugu and live like peasants? I didn't work this hard to go backward. I married a man of status. If that's gone, maybe we're not meant to be. That night, she packed a small bag and left. No tears, no hugs, just slammed the door and disappeared into the city. Chuka sat alone on the expensive leather couch of his now worthless mansion, the silence louder than any noise he'd ever known. The test had begun. But the heartbreak, that was real. And what she would do next would hurt him in a way no amount of wealth could ever heal. The days after Amaka left were the hardest. Chuka had never known what true silence sounded like, until he had to eat alone, sleep alone, and wake up to an empty side of the bed where her perfume used to linger. He kept up the act, even though no one was watching anymore, no staff, no driver. He locked the mansion and moved into his father's old house in Enugu, just like he told her. The house was simple, dusty, and filled with memories of his childhood before he had anything. No AC, no fancy furniture, no chef to ask, "What would you like to eat, sir?" He swept the floors himself, fetched water from a broken tap behind the house, and cooked basic yam and egg when hunger forced his pride into the kitchen. He didn't want to be there, but he needed to be there, not to hide from the world, but to find something real again, a real woman, a real life. 1 week after settling in, he got a call from Jide. "Guy, she's already out there like you never existed," Jide said, voice low. Chuka clenched his jaw. "What do you mean?" "I saw her at Cubana with some politician's son. New weave, new dress, ordering Azul like Sena pure water. She told people you were never her type, that she just stayed with you out of pity. Said you begged her to marry. You." Chuka laughed bitterly, a painful, dry laugh. "Begged her," he muttered. His chest felt tight. "Chuka, I'm telling you, this babe, she's painting you like a loser. She's acting like she carried you financially. Women are even commenting, Ah, poor her, she deserves better. He ended the call and stared at the cracked ceiling above him. She had left him and was now mocking him. And the worst part, she didn't know he was still rich, that everything, the fall, the broke lifestyle, the heartbreak, it was all a test, but she had failed. Spectacularly. Still, something inside him whispered, "This isn't over." A week later, as he walked down the dusty road to the local market, he saw her, Amaka. She wasn't supposed to be there. But there she was, standing beside a flashy car, laughing with that same politician's son Jide had mentioned. She looked radiant. Fake smile, fake eyelashes, fake laugh. She hadn't noticed him. He stood by a stall, pretending to buy oranges, but really he was watching, observing. The man beside her reached for her waist and she didn't resist. Then, just as he leaned in to kiss her, she saw Chuka, their eyes locked. For a moment the whole world stood still. She froze, lips slightly parted. Chuka raised a brow, calm, said nothing, just nodded once, slowly. Then turned and walked away, like she was nothing but dust in the wind. Back at home he sat on the porch, a cup of cold Gary in his hand, and thought, what did I ever see in her? But that night a knock came on his door. He wasn't expecting visitors. He looked through the window, heart thudding. It was her, Amaka, wearing a tight dress, standing with arms crossed, face unreadable. He opened the door, stared at her. "Chuka," she began, but he didn't move. She hesitated, then said softly, "We need to talk." And for the first time in his life, Chuka looked at his wife and realized he didn't recognize her anymore. Chuka stepped aside without saying a word, and Amaka walked in slowly like she was entering a stranger's house. The place was dim, plain. No scented candles, no gold frames, no marble floors. Just dust, faded walls, and the scent of boiled water and palm oil hanging in the air. She stood in the living room awkwardly, looking around like she was afraid to sit. Her heels clicked on the tiled floor, echoing the tension between them. "Nice place," she said sarcastically. Chuka raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. He leaned on the doorway, arms folded, staring. "You look thin," she added, trying to smile. "I eat what I can afford now," he said coolly. "Why are you here, Amaka?" She bit her lower lip and looked away for a second, then turned back to him. "Look, I made a mistake, okay? I was scared. Everything happened so fast. One day we're good, next day you're broke. I panicked." Chuka gave a bitter laugh. "You panicked and ran into another man's arms in less than 48 hours? Her jaw tightened. "Don't make it sound like that." He stepped forward. "How should I make it sound then? That you disappeared without even a proper goodbye? That you told people I begged you to marry me? That you said I was never your type?" She blinked. You heard that?" "Everything," he replied, voice low. "Even the Azul at Cubana." Her confidence wavered, and for the first time she looked a bit ashamed. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was angry. I felt betrayed." "You should have told me the truth earlier." "That was the truth," he said sharply. "You just didn't stay long enough to see it through. I told you what I wanted you to hear because I needed to see what you would do, not what you would say." She looked down. "And now what? You want me to beg?" "No," he replied simply. "I don't want anything from you." Silence filled the room like smoke. Then she said something he wasn't expecting. "I left him." Chuka frowned. "Left who?" "The guy, the politician's son. I couldn't even stand him. He treated me like a trophy, like property. I realized—" "No," Chuka interrupted. "You realized you couldn't use him the way you used me." Her face twisted. "You think that's all I ever did? Use you?" He looked at her long and hard. "Isn't it?" Amaka was silent. Then she did something even more unexpected. She sat on the floor. Her dress folded awkwardly beneath her, but she didn't care. "I didn't grow up rich like you, Chuka. I saw my mother beg for food, sell a kara in the sun until her hands were too burnt to cook. I told myself I'd never live that life again. So yes, I wanted a man who could provide, who had power. And when I thought you lost that, I felt like the dream was slipping away." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but Chuka just stood there, stone-faced. Should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth. Not test me like some exam, that's not love either. He sat down across from her, tired eyes meeting hers. You know what's not love? Leaving someone at their lowest. That's not survival instinct, Amaka, that's greed dressed in fear. She wiped her face. So what now? Is this it? Chuka leaned back against the wall, staring up at the ceiling. I don't know yet, but I do know one thing. She looked up. You broke something in me, and I don't think even money can fix it. The next morning, Amaka was still there. Chuka had let her sleep in the guest room, the only other room with a mattress that didn't smell like old wood. He barely slept. His thoughts were loud. Memories flooded his mind, twisting his heart. Her laughter, their midnight talks, the way she used to rest her head on his chest like she was home. Was it ever real? He stood outside in the early light, holding a cup of tea when she stepped out behind him. Her hair was tied up, no makeup, wearing one of his old shirts that swallowed. Her frame, she looked different, not glamorous, not guarded. Just human. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said quietly. He didn't turn, just sipped his tea. But I want to stay here, not forever, just for now. Let me help around. Cook, clean, do something. Maybe you hate me. Maybe I deserve it, but I don't want to walk away yet. Chuka finally turned. This isn't a movie, Amaka. There's no redemption arc. I know, she nodded. But you said I left at your lowest. Let me stay at your lowest now if that's where you truly are. He studied her for a while. Part of him wanted to scream at her to leave. The other part, the tired, broken part, wanted answers, not closure, just understanding. Fine, he said. You stay, but don't expect anything from me. She nodded, relieved. I won't. And so the days passed. To his surprise, she stayed true to her word. She cleaned the cobwebs, washed clothes with her hands, even bathed the dog Chuka never had the time to give away. She cooked with firewood, carried water from the back like the village women, and never once complained. But Chuka didn't make it easy. He was distant, cold. He barely spoke unless necessary. Every time she tried to spark a conversation, he shut it down. Then one afternoon she found a small locked drawer in the living room, a polished oak piece that didn't belong in the dusty, fading house. Curiosity got the better of her. Inside there were documents, property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates, all in Chuka's name. Billions. She froze. This wasn't poverty. This was performance. She took the papers in shaking hands, flipping, threw them one by one, her eyes wide. And then, under a folder marked private, she found something that made her chest tighten, a letter. It was written to someone named Mr. Bello, Chuka's lawyer. If she fails the test, prepare the divorce. Papers. She will get nothing, not a single kobo. Amaka dropped the folder like it was burning. Her legs buckled, and she sat slowly on the edge of the couch, staring at the documents scattered on the ground. It had all been a lie. He wasn't broke. He was watching, and she had walked right into. So that evening she didn't speak. She just served him dinner in silence and went back to her room. But Chuka noticed the shift, the stillness in her steps, the way her eyes avoided his like they were holding shame. He knew she had found the drawer, and he waited. The next morning, she came to him, envelope in hand, her face pale, her lips dry. I want to leave. Chuka raised an eyebrow. Why? I saw the papers. I know everything, she said, voice cracking. You were never broke. No, he said softly. I wasn't. Tears slipped from her eyes. You played me, she whispered. He leaned forward, expression sharp. No, Amaka. I revealed you. Amaka stood in the middle of the living room, envelope still in her hand, face wet with tears she couldn't control anymore. You revealed me, she repeated, almost in a whisper, like I was some fraud. Chuka's eyes didn't flinch. You were. Her breath caught in her throat. She'd prepared 100 excuses, 1,000 ways to explain herself, but none of them felt like they would matter now. You made me feel like I was nothing, she said. And you watched me walk away, knowing it was all fake. That's not love either, Chuka, that's cruelty. And what you did, what do we call that? Loyalty, love? He snapped. You didn't even try to fight for us, Amaka. The moment I said I was broke, you left. You didn't even look back. You ran into another man's arms like I was a burden you couldn't wait to drop. Silence stretched. She swallowed hard. I was scared. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I was scared. My whole life I've known nothing but struggle. I thought you were my way out of that, and when I thought you'd lost everything, I panicked. I acted selfishly, I know. He stood up slowly and walked toward her. His voice was cold, controlled, but beneath it you could feel the storm. Do you even realize, he said, that if this had been real, if I had lost everything, you'd still be gone? Her lips trembled. And you only came back now because that politician didn't treat you like a queen, right? You didn't come back because of love. You came back because your plan B didn't work out. Amaka shook her head desperately. That's not true. Not entirely. Not entirely, he scoffed. You're trying to lie even now? She took a deep breath. At first, yes, I ran, but being here, doing the basic things, remembering what life felt like before luxury, it made me see something. I didn't love you for your money, but I stayed because of your money. That's the truth, that's my ugly truth, and I'm not proud of it. Chuka stared at her long and hard. His eyes softened, not because he forgave her, but because she had finally told him something that felt honest. And what do you want now, he asked. She wiped her tears. Nothing, I'll leave. I won't take a kobo. I won't drag your name. I won't even ask for a ride. Just let me go with a little dignity. He nodded once, then turned and walked into the bedroom. 10 minutes later, she heard the door open again. She turned around, expecting to see Chuka with her packed bag or a driver waiting outside. But instead, he held something she hadn't seen in years, a small velvet box. Her heart stopped. He opened it, and inside was the same ring he'd proposed to her with 4 years ago. Only this time it wasn't for love. It was for closure. He placed it gently on the table beside her. This, he said, was for the woman I thought I married. Whoever she was, she's gone now. Then he walked out without another word. Amaka picked up the box, stared at the ring and broke down. The kind of cry that comes from the soul. The kind that has no sound, just pain. She didn't know how long she cried, but by the time she stood up and walked out the door, she knew something had died inside both of them that could never be resurrected. But what neither of them knew was that fate wasn't done with them yet, because one last betrayal was still on the way. A week had passed since Amaka left the Enugu house. Chuka had returned to Lagos, back to his normal life. Tailored suits, guarded gates, board meetings, and private jets. But something was different. The success that once made him feel like a king now felt like a cage. The heartbreak didn't fade with distance. It sat on his chest like a heavy stone. He didn't miss Amaka. He missed what he thought they had. But just when he was beginning to find his footing again, another blow came crashing. It started with a phone call from his lawyer, Mr. Bello. "Sir," Bello said, his voice unusually tense, "I received a request today from your bank. Apparently someone tried to access your offshore accounts." Chuka sat up. "What? Who?" "They used copies of your ID, passport, and even a forged signature. We blocked the transfer before it went through. But, sir, whoever did this knew exactly what to look for. They had all your confidential details." Chuka's mind raced. "How? Those accounts are sealed, encrypted. No one—" Then it hit him, Amaka. He had been careless. During her time at the house, she had cleaned his office. She had touched his drawers, sorted his folders. She must have seen something, maybe copied documents, taken photos. And he hadn't suspected a thing. He hung up without saying goodbye and dialed Jide immediately. "Find her," he said through clenched teeth. "Find out where she is. Now." Jide, always loyal, didn't ask questions. By that evening, Chuka had his answer. Amaka hadn't just left Lagos, she was in Ghana. Living large in a beachside resort in Accra, using a fake name, room fully paid for in cash. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was war. The next morning, Chuka boarded his jet and landed in Ghana by noon. No entourage, no guards, just him and fury. He didn't announce his arrival. Instead, he showed up at the resort in a plain white shirt, jeans, and shades. The receptionist didn't even recognize him. But the moment he spotted her, lounging by the pool, laughing with a glass of wine in hand, everything inside him snapped. He walked straight up, calm as stone, and stood in front of her. She looked up. Hand froze. "Chuka," she breathed, color draining from her face. He pulled a chair and sat across from her, expression unreadable. "You were going to steal from me?" She swallowed hard, panic spreading in her eyes. "No, I wasn't going to take anything. I just—" "Don't lie, not this time." She shut her mouth. He leaned forward. "All the tears, the cleaning, the let me stay. It was all fake. You knew about the money and you stayed behind to find a way in. You were buying time, playing innocent." She looked away, jaw trembling. "I didn't plan it that way. But when I saw the papers, I don't know. Something in me changed. I thought, if you didn't want me to have anything after everything, I should at least take back what I gave up for you." "You didn't give up anything," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "You took, and now you tried to take more." The entire pool area fell silent. People stared, but he didn't care anymore. She stood up slowly, voice shaking. "I loved you once." "You loved what I had," he snapped. "Not who I was." And then he did the one thing she never saw coming. He slid a brown envelope across the table. "Inside documents, legal final." "I already filed for divorce," he said, standing up. "You'll walk away with nothing, just like you came." Her lips parted in shock, but he wasn't finished. "Oh, and that fake signature attempt? Fraud." "I'm pressing charges." Amaka's knees nearly gave out, but he turned, walked away, and didn't look back. Not this time. The divorce went public within days. Social media exploded. Billionaire wife tries to steal. Millions after fake poverty. Test? She failed the test, now she faces prison. Photos of Amaka in Ghana, Chuka in court, and old wedding pictures resurfaced like ghosts from a love story that had turned into a cautionary tale. Some people mocked her, others pitied her, but the loudest voices were the ones that said she chose money and still lost it all. Chuka, meanwhile, stood at a press conference in Lagos, calm and collected. When a journalist asked him why he did it, why he tested his own wife, his answer was simple. "I had to know if love could survive without wealth." She gave me my answer. But behind closed doors, it wasn't that easy. Even with her out of his life, even with the victory in his hands, he felt hollow. He had loved her, deeply, stupidly. And losing her, even by exposing her, felt like pulling out a part of his own chest. But there was no time for grief. The court process had begun. Amaka had hired a lawyer in Ghana trying to fight the charges. She pleaded that she didn't actually transfer any funds, that she changed her mind before it was too late. But digital footprints didn't lie. The intent was there. The screenshots, the attempts, the access codes, it was enough. One evening, Chuka received a call from his lawyer again. "Sir, she's not going to prison." Chuka frowned. "What do you mean?" She took a deal. Signed. A legal confession. In exchange, she avoids jail. But she forfeits all claims to any of your assets. Everything, house, money, even the cars you gifted her. It's all coming back. Chuka sighed deeply. "Let her go," he muttered. He didn't want revenge anymore. He wanted peace, and strangely, that peace didn't come from victory. It came from letting go. Later that week, Chuka drove to his father's old house in Enugu again, alone. He walked through the same dusty living room, sat on the same porch, looked at the same sky, and for the first time in months, he felt something close to clarity. But fate wasn't finished. As he stood outside, a small black car pulled up near the gate. He didn't recognize it at first, until the door opened and out stepped a woman, not Amaka, younger, about mid-20s, brown, skin, afro, slim build. She looked nervous, clutching a brown envelope in her hands. "Mr. Obiora?" she asked shyly. He nodded, confused. "Yes?" I'm sorry to show up like this," she said quickly. but I've been trying to reach you. I wrote letters, emails. I even messaged your office once, but they said you never read direct mail. What's this about? He asked cautiously. She swallowed, stepped closer, and handed him the envelope. He opened it. Inside was a birth certificate, name Kamsi Amaka Obiora, date of birth 3 years ago. Chuka stared at the paper, heart suddenly thudding in his chest. What is this? The woman looked up at him, eyes trembling. I'm Amaka's younger sister, she said quietly. That's your daughter. Chuka stood frozen on the porch, his hands trembling as he stared at the birth certificate. Your… What? He whispered. The young woman nodded. Your daughter, Amaka's child. Her name is Kamsi. She's 3 now. He couldn't believe it, couldn't even breathe. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked at the name again. Kamsi. Amaka Obiora, his surname, his blood. Where is she? He asked, voice low, hoarse. In Lagos. She's with my mother right now, the girl said. Amaka didn't want to tell you at first. She found out she was pregnant just after she left you the first time, when you told her you were broke. Chuka blinked hard. And she still walked away? She didn't know she was pregnant when she left. She found out weeks later. She hid it. She didn't want it to ruin her plans, as she called it. But when Kamsi was born, things changed. Amaka didn't care anymore. She started using her as a tool, a backup plan in case the money ever stopped coming. Chuka's chest burned. She used my child as a weapon. The woman nodded. She told me everything when she was drunk once, that she kept the child a secret, that she never wanted you to have any claim. But I couldn't take it anymore. I raised Kamsi more than she did. That little girl deserves a father. Chuka leaned against the wall, head spinning. His heart wasn't just breaking now, it was shattering, and just when he thought Amaka had done her worst, she had gone lower. What does Kamsi know? He asked after a long silence. She thinks you're some rich uncle. Amaka shows her. Pictures of you in magazines. She points at the TV and says, that's my daddy, but she doesn't know what that means. Chuka closed his eyes. That was it. That was the last piece of the puzzle. Amaka hadn't just failed him as a wife. She'd failed their daughter before he even knew she existed. He looked at the young woman. I want to meet her. Now. The next day, Chuka arrived at a modest bungalow on the mainland. The woman, who introduced herself properly as a daise, walked him into the house, and there, sitting on the floor, playing with a stuffed bear, was a little girl, big eyes, round cheeks, dark curly hair, and something about her smile. It hit him like lightning. She looked just like him. Hey, Adaisi said softly. Kamsi, look who's here. The girl looked up, her small face lit up with a smile, like her spirit recognized something her mind hadn't caught up with yet. Uncle Chuka, she squealed, running into his arms. He caught her mid-run, lifting her off the floor. His hands shook as he held her, and as she rested her tiny head against his shoulder, something inside him healed, and something else ignited. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was about legacy. That evening, Chuka made a call. To his legal team, to his PR team, to his security. The war with Amaka wasn't over, not because he wanted revenge, but because now he had a reason to fight, and her name was Kamsi. He would get full custody. He would expose every lie Amaka had told. He would protect his daughter from the damage of a woman who had only ever cared about herself. 3 weeks later, Chuka stood in court again. This time not as a husband, but as a father. With evidence, witnesses, and a days by his side, the case was strong. Amaka, cornered and exposed, had nothing left to hide behind. The judge ruled in Chuka's favor. He walked out of that courtroom with Kamsi in his arms. No cameras, no celebration, just peace. That night, back at his mansion, Chuka sat on the balcony with Kamsi curled up on his lap. Daddy, she mumbled sleepily for the first time. He kissed her forehead, eyes glistening. I'm here now, he whispered, and I'm not going anywhere.